Shadow was a cat with a reputation. Among his neighborhood feline peers, he was a legend. To his owner, Clara, he was a fluffy little rascal with ninja instincts and criminal intent. He had sleek black fur, bright yellow eyes, and the uncanny ability to vanish into the shadows as easily as he appeared out of nowhere. To most people, he looked like an ordinary house cat, but everyone who'd ever eaten dinner in Clara SO apartment knew one simple truth: never leave your food unattended. It was a rainy Thursday evening. Clara had spent the entire day working and had finally decided to treat herself to her favorite meal: honey-glazed roast chicken, seasoned vegetables, and a decadent slice of chocolate cake. After lighting a candle and queuing up a romantic comedy on her laptop, she laid the meal carefully on the table, poured a glass of wine, and stepped into the kitchen to grab a napkin. She was gone for no more than 30 seconds. When she returned, the chicken was gone. Not just a bite, not a shredded piece. The entire drumstick had vanished. And sitting on the chair where it had once rested was Shadow, calm, collected, and licking his paw with satisfaction. Clara gasped, looked at him in disbelief, and Shadow, with the purest confidence, gave a soft meow and blinked. That was the beginning of what would become known as his second legendary heist. Shadow had already pulled off several minor food thefts in the past. Clara had once caught him unwrapping a sandwich. Using only his teeth, he'd swiped a shrimp cocktail from a dinner party platter while guests were still seated. And he once opened a sealed container of tuna salad using a combination of paw pressure and persistent biting. But none of those crimes compared to what was about to unfold. Clara had had enough. She installed a motion-activated pet cam in the kitchen. She reinforced the cabinets with magnetic locks. She even bought a food-safe container with a twist and lock lid, specifically designed to prevent unauthorized pet access. And finally, she programmed a voice command in the pet cam so that when motion was detected, it would loudly yell, "Shadow, no," in her own voice. For a while, it worked. Weeks passed with no incidents. Shadow seemed to have gone straight. He lazed in sunbeams, chased dust particles, and curled up peacefully on the sofa. But in truth, he was waiting, planning, watching. On the day of the great lasagna caper, Clara had just returned from the market with ingredients for her grandmother's famous 5-layer lasagna. She spent hours preparing it, carefully seasoning each layer, simmering the meat sauce to perfection, and sprinkling fresh mozzarella between each pasta sheet. The smell filled the apartment like a warm hug, and Shadow, who had been napping by the window, slowly opened one eye and licked his lips. As the lasagna baked in the oven, Shadow leapt silently from the windowsill and moved closer to the kitchen. Keeping out of view, he studied the new setup. The motion sensor's red light blinked slowly near the ceiling. The countertop was higher than before, freshly cleaned, and the lasagna dish sat in the center, bubbling gently beneath the oven light. At exactly 7:16 p.m., Clara removed the dish from the oven, placed it on the counter to cool, and stepped out onto the balcony to take a call. The moment the sliding door clicked shut, Shadow launched into action. First, he approached the camera. He had learned the camera's range and knew its blind spots. From behind a large potted plant, he leapt to the top of the fridge, then onto a narrow ledge just below the sensor's field of vision. His fur brushed the wall as he carefully made his way toward the countertop. He paused. The pet cam's light was still blinking. He waited. Then, in one swift movement, he leapt from the ledge and landed silently on the countertop beside the lasagna dish. The foil cover shimmered with steam. Shadow sniffed cautiously and began to peel back the corner, using his claws. The cheese beneath glistened. The meat sauce was rich and aromatic. He stuck his paw in and swiped a chunk of the top layer, devouring it quickly. The motion sensor clicked. From the speaker, Clara's voice boomed. "Shadow, no!" Shadow flinched, his ears twitching. He paused to make sure Clara wasn't storming back in, but she wasn't. She was still talking on the phone, laughing at something. The sensor had blown his cover, but there was no real threat. That's when he decided to take it to the next level. Shadow hooked his claws beneath the foil and yanked it off entirely, letting the steam rise like a magician's smoke cloud. He lunged forward, took a full mouthful of meat and pasta, and scurried off the counter, landing softly on the floor. He bolted toward the hallway, dragging his prize behind him like a tiger in the jungle. By the time Clara returned, the lasagna was missing a corner. The foil was shredded on the floor, and there was a trail of tomato sauce leading straight under the couch. She groaned. "You've got to be kidding me!" From beneath the couch, Shadow purred softly. The mission was complete. He had once again defeated the system. Clara tried everything. She started placing food in containers, covering dishes with weights, even placing citrus sprays on countertops. But Shadow adjusted. He trained himself to tolerate the smell. He learned to push objects off the table just enough to nudge lids loose. He discovered how to use his body weight to shift chairs into position. One night, Clara invited friends over for tacos. She placed all the ingredients on the table: tortillas, seasoned meat, guacamole, diced onions, cheese, sour cream. Shadow watched from above. As soon as everyone left the room to fetch drinks, he descended. His first step was elegant and quiet. His second sent a spoon flying off the table. It clattered to the floor. "What was that?" someone called. Clara returned to the dining room just in time to see Shadow leaping off the table with a mouthful of shredded chicken. She dove for him, but he slipped under the table, past the chairs, through the curtain, and into the bathroom, where he jumped into the laundry basket and disappeared beneath a pile of towels. From that day forward, Clara knew she wasn't dealing with just a mischievous cat. She was dealing with a mastermind. She started journaling his tactics. Day 42. Shadow removed foil silently. Day 47. Opened plastic takeout box with a single paw. Day 52. Balanced on kitchen faucet to reach snack shelf. Day 60. Used his tail to knock down jerky bag. His skills were evolving. He was learning from failure, refining techniques. He once tried to reach a salmon steak, left too close to the edge of the sink. He slipped and fell into the sink basin. But the next day, he returned with more balance and better paw placement. On the 100th day, Clara brought home a rotisserie chicken. She placed it in a glass dish, sealed it tight, and put it on the highest shelf in her kitchen cupboard. She was sure this time she'd finally outsmarted him. She left for her yoga class, fully confident. 2 hours later, she returned. The cupboard door was open. The dish was on the floor. The chicken? Gone. Shadow sat nearby, licking his chops, looking deeply satisfied. Clara just stared at him in disbelief. How? Shadow blinked. Later, she checked her security camera. Shadow had used the back of the kitchen chair as a launch point. He pushed a mixing bowl closer to the countertop, leapt to the counter, then up onto the cupboard. There, he used his nose and paws to wiggle the door open. Then he knocked the dish onto a pile of couch pillows he had dragged over earlier in the day. He had prepared landing gear. She couldn't believe it. He'd become unstoppable. News of Shadow's crimes eventually spread beyond the apartment. Clara's blog posts about "My cat the food thief" went viral. Shadow became a meme. Fan art depicted him in sunglasses with captions like "Operation Snackstorm" and "License to Steal." A toy company reached out to model a plushie on his likeness. Clara still tried to enforce rules, but by now, Shadow had earned his place in the family hierarchy. He got first watch on meat, second dibs on dairy, and a permanent spot in the legend books of household mischief. Every night Clara would whisper, "Please let me keep at least one bite." And every night Shadow would stare, silently, as if weighing her request like a food critic, deciding the fate of a chef. Then, with deliberate slowness, he would leap onto the counter, because for Shadow, the mission never ended, and dinner was always the objective. If you love heartwarming animal stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more adorable adventures.